won't believe what these old cans, bottles, and broken drums are about to become. Most people would throw them away, but today, we're turning trash into treasures that bloom. Welcome to Revive Nature, where forgotten things find second lives in the most beautiful corners of your garden. This video is packed with fresh DIY trash garden ideas, complete with timestamps, so feel free to skip to what inspires you most. And if something sparks your curiosity, ask away in the comments. I read every word. But to be part of something real. You may not know me yet, but behind this voice is a small family and a bigger dream. Your click makes a difference. Your presence keeps this dream alive. Thanks for being here. Thanks for seeing me. In the golden light of a quiet autumn morning, a forgotten fence awakens with purpose. Where once there were only weathered slats of wood, now hangs a symphony of painted plastic bottles, each one a vessel of life, a cradle for cascading cherry tomatoes. These humble upcycled containers, once discarded as trash, now sway gently in the breeze, their pastel skins catching glimmers of sunlight between the blooms of marigold and Japanese anemone. The colors are intentional, soft mint greens to match the kale leaves below, dusky blues that echo the early dawn, and a cheerful blush pink that mirrors the asters in bloom nearby. The bottles, cut with care and drilled for breath, hang securely with rustic twine, their roots nestled in rich soil. Above them, tiny tomato fruits peek shyly from thick foliage, slowly blushing into red. Bees hover and dip, drawn by both the flowers and the promise of ripening sweetness. It's not just gardening. It's art. It's a quiet rebellion against waste and monotony. In a space barely the width of a walkway, the vertical plane becomes the canvas, fences no longer boundaries, but frames for botanical expression. This garden whispers to those who pass by. It says, you don't need acres, or money, or perfection. You only need heart, a few old bottles, and the courage to color outside the lines. Positioned at eye level, this display invites daily joy. It becomes ritual, to check the leaves, to water just enough, to watch a once transparent Coke bottle now cradle fruit and function with grace. Around it, chrysanthemums nod, and autumn wind stirs the leaves of nearby marigolds, bright like fire against the crisp air. Here, in a tiny space between fence and soil, beauty grows, not in spite of trash, but because of it. In the hush of a small patio tucked behind a cottage wall, life grows upward. Stacked against the bricks, a wooden rack leans gently, its arms cradling tin cans once used for soup, now reborn in a palette of soft pastels. Lavender cans cradle rosemary. Sky blue ones host lemon basil. A sun-kissed coral tin bursts with mint, green, and full of vigor. Each can is painted with love, their former lives erased beneath coats of matte color and gentle brushstrokes. Their surfaces catch morning light, casting golden glows across the tiny courtyard. Bees hover curiously near the flowering herbs, while the earthy scent of wet soil mixes with the rich aroma of thyme and sage. The scene is alive, but in the quietest, most comforting way. Around the edges of the patio, chrysanthemums bloom in clusters, flanked by Japanese anemone nodding in the wind. Sedum plants spill over from a rustic border nearby, their blooms echoing the tones of the hand-painted tins. This isn't just upcycling. It's storytelling through soil. A memory of waste transformed into fragrance and flavor, of old cans rescued and repurposed not as decor, but as guardians of life. The tiered layout invites exploration, each level a new discovery of texture, color, and scent. It's a vertical solution for a horizontal problem, too little space. And yet, it feels full, complete, like a secret garden climbing toward the sky. Children reach up to pinch mint leaves. Guests lean in to marvel at the blend of utility and beauty. And the gardener, hands still streaked with paint and soil, smiles quietly, knowing that even in the smallest corner of the world, something meaningful can grow. Here on this tiny patio, tin becomes treasure, and herbs become poetry. At the edge of a modest backyard, where old grass meets cobbled stone, stand the repurposed bodies of forgotten drums, cut clean, painted bright, and filled with purpose. Gone is the rust. Gone is the noise of their industrial past. Now they sit quietly, steady and strong, each one a raised bed cradling rows of leafy greens, spinach so dark it drinks the sun, pak choy with blades like folded fans, and butter lettuce soft enough to catch the morning dew. Each drum half wears a new skin. One is sage green, soft as eucalyptus leaves. Another, robin's egg blue, a nod to clear skies above the pergola. Still another, in terracotta, blends warmly with the clay pots scattered along the flower beds. No rough metal, no stains, only clean lines, gentle curves, and the fresh scent of soil and chlorophyll. Around them, the garden responds in bloom. Chrysanthemums and sedum blush in late autumn hues. Marigolds edge the beds, not just for show but to ward off the pests. Japanese anemone wave gently in the breeze, while bees drift lazily among the flowers, occasionally dipping down to inspect a new leaf. These drums do more than hold plants. They hold a shift in mindset, from waste to wonder. They raise the soil higher, easier for aching knees and tender backs. They gather warmth, protect roots, and promise harvests even in small spaces. They speak to the gardener who sees beauty not in price tags, but in possibility. To the eye that sees form and function married in color and bloom. To the spirit that knows the joy of tending, of reclaiming, of growing something where there once was nothing. In a tiny backyard, these drums bloom not with noise, but with quiet abundance. Between two garden posts, where a wall once stood bare, a new kind of vertical life now rises. It begins with a bottle, ordinary, clear, once tossed aside after a fizzy drink. But in the hands of someone with a gardener's heart and a creator's vision, it becomes something more. Multiplied by dozens, trimmed with care, painted in soft hues of mint and peach, these bottles are now cradles of nourishment. They are mounted in neat rows on a pallet wall, each one cut open just enough to hold a fistful of soil, just enough to give life a space to breathe. From their open mouths, leaves spill over, curly kale, red leaf lettuce, butterhead greens, each leaf more vibrant against the bottle's colored edge. The structure is simple, elegant. It asks for little but offers so much. A vertical wall of green where there was none. An answer to the gardener with no room to spare, but a deep desire to grow. All around, autumn flowers celebrate the transformation. Asters bloom like lavender suns. Marigolds flicker like fire. Chrysanthemums lean toward the light, as if drawn to the miracle of lettuce rising from plastic. This garden wall whispers a truth that feels both quiet and bold. Food can grow anywhere, even from what we once called trash. Children reach up to touch the kale. Butterflies dance nearby. The soft rustle of leaves harmonizes with the breeze that moves through the bottles, making music where silence once sat. There is no waste here, only rhythm. A pattern of reuse and renewal. A choice to see potential in the ordinary. And so, the wall stands, not as a fence, but a promise. a living, growing canvas where beauty and sustenance meet. The border of a garden is often overlooked, just the edge, just the outline. But here, under the dappled light of an autumn afternoon, the border sings. It's lined with lanterns, but not of brass or glass. These are simpler, humbler, and more magical still. Once soup cans, now transformed into miniature beacons of life and charm. Each one is pierced with delicate patterns, stars, leaves, petals, like lace made of metal. A gentle touch of the hammer turned waste into wonder. Painted in tones that whisper rather than shout, sage, dusty rose, eggshell white, these can stand proudly at the feet of asters and marigolds, catching the light in both their blooms and their pierced skins. By day, they hold soil and grow, thyme, curly parsley, a sprig of chili. By night, a tea light flickers inside, turning the garden path into a fairy tale. They do not pretend to be perfect. Some have small dents. Others are slightly uneven. But together, they form a rhythm, a repetition of intention, of beauty born from reuse. The eye follows them like poetry etched into the soil, each can a stanza, each flower a rhyme. These recycled can lantern pots bring warmth not just in glow, but in meaning. They are gentle rebellion against the idea of trash. They are craftsmanship wrapped in care. They are garden edging that does more than separate. They invite, guide, and enchant. Children run fingers across the patterns. Guests pause to look closer. And the gardener, kneeling nearby, watering a young thyme sprig, smiles, not at what she bought, but what she built. It is a garden of presence, of detail, of love for the little things. At the border of this cottage sanctuary, the humble can becomes art, and the garden, a place where every edge glows. Nestled in the dappled sunlight of a cottage patio, a row of wooden crates waits, not empty, but alive with color and sweetness. Each crate is a vessel of care, holding rows of repurposed plastic bottles now painted in soft vintage hues, pale pink, butter yellow, mint green. These bottles, once thrown away, now cradle something precious, strawberries. Vines tumble from their edges, leaves full and dark, the fruit blushing red against the pastel backdrop. It's a quiet marvel, how something discarded can be given such tenderness. How plastic, when shaped with intention and cradled in wood, becomes almost poetic. The crates themselves, weathered but strong, lift the bottles slightly off the ground, catching the sun and giving the strawberries room to stretch and shine. The scent of ripe fruit mingles with the garden's perfume. Chrysanthemums nod nearby in gold and purple, while marigolds line the patio's edge like a garland of fire. Japanese anemone lean toward the crates, their soft petals like dancers in slow motion. Around it all, bees hum, a gentle choir to the rhythm of growth. This garden bed isn't large. It wasn't expensive. But it tells a rich story, of second chances, of making space for sweetness in a small space. The crates make it movable, modular, adaptable. The bottles keep soil secure, roots moist, and form beautiful arcs where fruit can dangle freely. And the strawberries? They come in slowly, then all at once, tiny bursts of red joy among the green. Children bend close to pick them. Guests lean in, surprised by the fragrance. The gardener knows this joy was crafted, not bought. Here, in these crates and bottles, is a lesson that echoes quietly: beauty is not always grown in the ground. Sometimes, it's built by hand, lovingly, colorfully, and with the courage to believe that even trash can bloom. In a quiet nook of a small backyard, a single structure rises, not grand, not towering, but undeniably proud. It is a drum. Or rather, it was. Once metal forgotten in the corner of a warehouse, its surface now wears new colors: burnt orange, sage green, and the faded blue of early autumn skies. Stacked in halves and welded with care, it becomes a vertical planter, a tower of nourishment, of creativity, of upward ambition. From its openings, life spills out. Green bean vines twist like dancers, their tendrils reaching for the sky. Rustic bamboo sticks, tied with jute, give them something to climb, toward the light, toward the bloom of possibility. Between their leaves, Small flowers begin to blossom, promising pods to come. Around the base, the garden answers in chorus. Chrysanthemums in warm ochres and deep purples, sedum with its waxy pink blooms, and Japanese anemone fluttering in the wind like petals in prayer. The ground is alive. The tower is alive. And yet, this space is not wide. The yard is narrow. The soil, shallow. But where space ends, imagination begins. The drum tower offers vertical freedom. It turns a single footprint into multiple levels of growing potential. Each segment holds compost-rich soil, lined with care to retain moisture. The top catches rain, the sides absorb the sun, and the whole becomes more than its parts. It becomes a sculpture of function. A symbol of what can be made when one refuses to see limits. Children trace the vines with their eyes, marveling at how far they stretch. Neighbors ask, "Is that really a drum?" The gardener, hands muddy but proud, simply nods. There is no need to explain. The beans will. In this little backyard, the humble drum sings a new song. A melody of upward growth, of green against rust, of food that climbs from repurposed roots. Beneath the shelter of aged wood and climbing vines, the pergola becomes a sky for color and life. From its beams, a cascade of hanging tin cans dangles like garden lanterns, except these hold not light, but life. Each one, once forgotten on a kitchen shelf or plucked from a trash bin, is now brushed in soft layers of lavender, peach, and mint. Their surfaces, decorated with hand-painted patterns or simple brush strokes, echo the gentle wildness of the garden below. Inside them, life grows bold. Tiny chili plants erupt with red fire among the green. Basil leans toward the sun, its scent rising with the morning dew. Rosemary stands tall, a sentinel among the herbs. The cans sway slightly in the breeze, turning this pergola into a slow-moving chandelier of growth. Below, the earth is rich with blooms. Chrysanthemums beam in golden clusters. Asters soften the corners with lilac hues. Japanese anemone nod in agreement as sedum autumn joy leans closer to the scene above. It is a conversation between ground and air, between rooted soil and hanging tin. The pergola, once bare, now hums with purpose. It frames the garden not just in structure, but in meaning. It becomes a place to sit, to breathe, to harvest with fingertips. The overhead display invites curiosity. Visitors look up, not just at the canopy of vines, but at the tiny ecosystem swaying gently above them. Here, space is reimagined. Vertical becomes usable. Trash becomes treasured. And a garden once constrained by square footage finds new layers in the air. There's no symmetry, no perfect pattern, but there is rhythm. A melody of tin, twine, green, and bloom. And when the sun dips low, casting shadows through the leaves, the cans catch the light just so, glinting like ornaments in a celebration of renewal. This is more than decoration. It is nourishment, both for the body and for the soul. The path through the garden is no longer just a way forward. It is now part of the story. Each step is guided by a line of painted bottles, carefully chosen, lovingly prepared. Once dull and disposable, these plastic vessels now stand tall along the edge of the walkway, like sentries dressed in soft tones of moss, clay, and faded aqua. But they do more than define a path, they carry life within. Each bottle, turned upside down and partially opened at its crown, holds a hidden gift, a seedling. Tiny shoots of spinach stretch toward the light. Pak choy and parsley nestle in the hollows. These are not decorations, they are beginnings. Each one a little promise of harvest to come. The idea is simple, yet it changes everything. In a garden where space is limited, the edges, so often wasted, are brought to life. What once framed the flowers now grows beside them. What once marked the line between gravel and soil now bridges beauty and sustenance. As the path winds through the garden, so too do the eyes, drawn to the quiet cleverness of repurposed plastic, now harmonized with the soft elegance of chrysanthemums and asters. Above them, marigolds stand guard, their orange faces catching the autumn sun. Around them, Japanese anemone flutter in the breeze, a gentle reminder of the season's breath. It's a path for walking, yes, but also for pausing, for noticing, for bending down to touch a tiny leaf, to water a sprout tucked gently inside a bottle. The journey becomes part of the gardening itself. Here, there is no waste, only intention. No clutter, only pattern. And each bottle whispers its own quiet message. I was once forgotten, but now I grow. And so, the garden path becomes a celebration, not just of where you're going, but of what you're growing along the way. Morning breaks gently in the cottage garden, and the air is cool, still laced with the breath of night. On a simple wooden bench by the patio wall, a line of small pots glistens, each one sheltering something young and green, something just beginning. Over each pot stands a bottle, not discarded, but transformed. Clear plastic, cut with care, placed upside down to create a dome of warmth and protection. Inside, the seedlings thrive. Lettuce unfurls its first leaves. Basil stands upright with purpose. A tiny strawberry plant peeks upward, cradled in condensation. These humble cloches, mini greenhouses made from everyday waste, offer shelter against cold snaps and wind. They hold in the morning's warmth and cradle the sun's light, like glass bells over a symphony of growth. There is no need for high-tech tools or expensive kits. Just a steady hand, a plastic bottle, and a gardener's gentle attention. Around the bench, the garden pulses with autumn life. Marigolds burn orange along the path. Asters sparkle in soft blues and purples. Chrysanthemums glow golden under the rising sun. Japanese anemone wave on slender stems, their white petals catching light like lanterns. It is a space both intentional and instinctive. These bottle cloches blend practicality with poetry. They speak to the gardener who sees possibility in the simplest of forms. Who understands that protection doesn't have to be pretty to be beautiful, and that the act of nurturing is itself an art. Every day, the bottles mist from within, as breath and life exchange. The seedlings stretch slowly, steadily. And the gardener watches, not with urgency, but with quiet pride, knowing that something strong is taking root beneath a shell once destined for the trash. Here, in the embrace of plastic and earth, the garden grows forward, tenderly, wisely, and with a heart full of reuse.